You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program, a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew. Welcome to a very special episode of the Write Project podcast. Today, we've got a host of authors on to answer one of the most frequent questions that's asked of any author. We're asking them,
what is your favorite comic book or comic book character?
And today to answer, we have on
Lily McCarthy, the amazing author of Quick Bright Things, the newest lesbian romance novel from Engen books. Lily McCarthy, what is your favorite comic book or comic book character?
SpiderMan. Or Loki.
Okay. I love SpiderMan. Why do you love SpiderMan? And now we have to talk. This is going to be a conversation.
So many reasons. There are so many reasons to love SpiderMan. He's so goofy. Like, I love the fact that no part of him has been cool ever, even though he's one of the coolest superheroes.
Yep.
He has always been just some geek who's trying his best.
He makes dad jokes, but has no children.
Yeah, exactly. He is so good. I love the stupid homemade suits he does. I love the whole it could be anyone behind the mask. He is an everyman, and that's what I love about him. And he's so much better in the comic books than he is in the movies.
Yeah. So far, I've really liked Tom Holland, though. Tom Holland comes closest to me, anyway. But that's a controversial statement.
That's so controversial. Why? Why him?
That's just my Spider-Man. It's like this one is who's quippy, but for a certain reason, because they're anxious, and you know what I mean. It's just very this is the voice I picture.
That's incredibly surprising because I don't hate Tom Holland Spider-Man, but he's not my Spider-Man, you know?
That's fair.
It's like how I love Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, but that's not my Joker.
Yeah.
You know? I think the problem with Tom Holland is that he's a little too handsome and cool. Just a little bit. He's not dorky and weird enough for me.
There is a little bit of that, yeah, where you want to look at him and go, but to be fair, we haven't seen him before the spider bite. You know what I mean? Maybe this is just spider genetics.
Maybe they'll flash back and he'll be a total dweeb, but I don't know. I don't like that they brought it back to high school Spider-Man again. I prefer college Spider-Man.
I really hope they keep him throughout. I hope that they keep him on and I would love to see a trilogy of trilogies where it's 3 in high school, 3 in college, and then 3 as an adult. I would love it.
Oh, wow. I think probably my favorite movie of Spider-Man might be Spider-Man 3. Because isn't that the one where he does the little street dance when he's trying to be cool? That's incredible. That is the best scene ever done in cinema, except for Am I a Man or Am I a Muppet from the Muppet Movie? And no, I will not take debates on that one.
Okay.
And or Into the Spider-Verse, because that was done so well.
I love Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, I really did. I also like the Andrew Garfield ones, man. Not the second one. The second one was hot garbage, but that first one, man, I remember sitting with who's now my wife in the theater, that scene when he saves the little kid from the car and he's too scared to come up and he takes off his mask and just gives it to him and said, take it, it'll make you strong. And oh man, I got chills. That was awesome. That was a good scene.
I'll watch anything Spider-Man related. He just has to be in it for 5 minutes and I'm going to watch it.
Yep.
But there's something about that goofy ass dance.
Yeah.
And there's something about Miles Morales.
Yeah.
It is Miles Morales, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Something about Miles Morales just listening to tunes in his little room.
Yeah.
That it gets me. It's so good. And Divorce Spider-Man is peak.
Yeah. Agreed. Awesome. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have the author of Alligator, and February, Lisa Moore. This is a strange one. Lisa Moore, what is your favorite comic book character or comic book? I love having people who are famous for serious literature on and ask this because it's always the best answers.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I'm going to have to say Veronica.
From Archie?
Yeah.
Every lit fiction author says Archie, and I love it. I started out on Archie. He's that's one of my favorite books, when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is, of course, that I'm not well versed in comic book fiction. I'm not even as well versed in graphic novels as I should be.
Yeah.
But I do love the idea of images and words together, and I love the idea that a graphic novel, reads like a film, and that each frame is like a shot that's set up or composed in the same way that a cinematic shot might be. I think that's really exciting.
It is. If you're ever looking to check out a wonderful, wonderful graphic novel that's lit fiction, that's not like superheroes or genre or anything like that, there's an autobiography by Craig Thomas called Blankets. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep...
It's about dealing with sexual abuse and learning to overcome that in the author's first relationship. It's very touching and wonderful.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Not that you asked. Sorry.
No, I love getting recommendations, especially in those areas that I'm not, that I need them, where I need to be guided. And that's one of them.
My editor-in-chief, my editor had rented it from the library and was halfway through and was raving about it to me, and I asked to borrow it, and it's this massive phone book size because it's the length of a novel in visual form. So it's like the size of a phone book, but you can get through it pretty quickly because there aren't a ton of words on each page like there would be with a novel. And she made me promise to get it back to her within a week, and I got so into it that I stayed up till like 3 a.m. crying having to finish this book. And I got it back to her the next day and was just... And then I ruined it for her because I was like, have you read this? She was like, dude, I wasn't done.
That's funny.
Thank you very much. Next on the line, we have Matthew Daniels, frequent contributor to the From the Rock series, as well as the author of the Diary of Knives. Matthew Daniels, what is your favorite comic book character?
Well, now, let me see. I had to pick just one.
I'll let you ramble on a bit if you want to pick more than one, but yeah.
My graphic novel experience has been interesting, but a little limited. And it's not that I'm actually really into them. It's just it's not that I don't want to pursue it. It's just it's one of those things. It's one of those rabbit hole kind of scenarios where if you're not willing to jump in for 500 hours at a time, it's kind of better not to even start.
Okay.
And I saw the danger there, so I had to kind of there were a few big ones that I got into. Marvel
1692.
Is that the one?
Yep. Or 1602, it might be, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's Gaiman,
That was a Neil Gaiman one. I really enjoyed that one. Preacher was another graphic novel that really stood out, the guy with the power of God and all of that, or the voice of God. That was a really interesting and incredibly dark story. Obviously, if you're going to be talking about graphic novels, you have to talk Watchmen. That was amazing. There's so many to pick from. Persepolis was a fascinating experience for me. I really enjoyed it. Mouse. There's so much great stuff to pick from. Generally, when somebody asks me who my favorite superhero is, I go with SpiderMan.
He would be one for me too, yeah.
Yeah, he was one. I like to joke that I'm into the climbers because my favorite X-Men character is Nightcrawler.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a thing. But I really enjoy the Spider-Man as a character because he's got so much of that mundanity that always fascinates me in well-done science fiction and fantasy, where like there's magic powers and floating islands and fire-breathing dragons, but I still have to do the dishes, you know?
Yep.
And his character, it carries a lot of that when you're a superhero and you're going out doing all this stuff and you have an alter ego or secret identity or what have you. A lot of these stories don't really give enough attention to the fact that you still need to have a day job.
Yeah.
And how stressful your life would be.
Or make it easy, like in the old Avengers comics, like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, like all those ones. The Avengers were paid by the government to be Avengers. Like they were on government retainer and seen as such a boon that it was like, okay, this, and it's just everything was taken care of for them, and they lived in a mansion, which is a weird setup. It takes away almost all drama potential.
Well, it could create some.
They did,
interesting
but
ways, but yes,
that inherent drama that's native to it, they removed right off the bat, and it's like, why?
I suppose it allows you to focus, but yeah, that's a thing. Yorick is another big one that comes out to me. I haven't actually finished the Why the Last Man series. I only got like 2 or 3 books in, and life happened, and I haven't gotten back to it. But
that's an incredible science fiction concept.
Yes, and there was some great quotes from that, and some interesting stuff going on. He has a monkey named Ampersand, like. That's awesome.
Yeah. That was genetically engineered to appeal to you.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of that. The fact that he wears a shirt with the Joker on it when he's named after a jester from Shakespeare was a cute touch.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Like I said, engineered.
Yep. So I guess that's the short answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Next we have
one of Newfoundland's most storied authors. We're on the line with Kevin Major, author of 1 for the Rock, 2 for the Tablelands, 3 for Trinity most recently, a host, an amazing library of titles. This is a very silly question to ask you, but Kevin Major, what is your favorite comic book character, if you have one?
You know what? I was never maybe Archie a bit, but and maybe that would what I would have to say. But I wasn't drawn to comic books as the way a lot of young people are. And so I wasn't into the superheroes at all. Yeah, I would have to beg out of that question in a way because I can't really answer it very well.
But you know what? Archie's actually a really common answer among like the among a lot of writers who've been like the Newfoundland writers who've been around since the 90s. That's the answer is Archie, and there's something to that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Next we have
Michelle Porter, who is a poet currently living in St. John's, Newfoundland. This is a very strange question. I love asking people who are more in the literary scene of things because it's a very genre question. And it's okay if you can't answer it. That's fine. Michelle Porter, what is your favorite comic book character?
Okay. Ms. Marvel, the new one, the Muslim teen Ms. Marvel, specifically.
Kamala Khan, yep.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely.
What's her name again? Did you know it offhand?
Oh yeah, Kamala Khan. I've read all her
Kamala
books.
Khan.
I'm a giant comic book nerd. I've read everything from her. Yep.
That came out, her character came out, what was that, 5 years ago now? Maybe even 6?
Yeah, it wasn't long.
I was down to the comic book store downtown looking for, for the next one coming out. I am not a comic book nerd necessarily, but I found her, and I was, I stepped into the comics a whole lot more. And there's now also a lot of really interesting Indigenous comic book characters that I both have read and need to read more of. That pile of books by my bed is getting taller.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm loving the different voices that are coming out and taking part in the. What's the way to say this? But like all comic books in a way, but like especially when it comes to these big like media companies like Marvel and DC and these large ones, I do love it when they find it in them to be more diverse, and when they seek out good representation and stuff like that. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because it reaches a broad audience. I remember when I was young and I grew up in a small Newfoundland town where I was now, my introduction to, and my parents are lovely people, but it was just never talked about. So I learned about diversity. Like I learned what an LGBTQ person was. It wasn't called that back then, from a comic book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just having positively represented characters in those books, and I'm like, oh, that's a thing that can happen. Cool. And then moving on with the story, it was
these comic book stories are so poignant, and they're so playful. There's so much that you can do with them. I actually do have one of the files I have is a story about a superhero. A middle-aged woman who becomes a superhero. So I love thinking about that playfulness and that seriousness that come together in the comic books.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Okay, that was possibly the best answer we've ever gotten to that. So that's wonderful. I will adjust my expectations of lit fiction. Yes, absolutely. Apologies.
Thank you very much. Next we have Ida Linehan Young. She is the author of the award-winning Mary Rowe series. The started with Being Mary Rowe, and then on to The Promise, and on to The Liars, and then I might have done the wrong order there, and then specifically to the newest book, The Stolen Ones. Ida Young, what is your favorite comic book character?
Maybe Archie. I always liked the Archie comics. Just Archie in general. I haven't read it in years, but that's the one that comes to mind. Yeah. Not for any particular reason. A lot of people read Archie. Love it. Yeah, just Archie.
Yeah, and Archie's very comforting. It's almost always the same. You know what I mean? It's like going into a warm bath. It's like, yep, here we go. Let's see what he's up to. Thank you very much. Next we have, coming on down to us from the United States, or up to us from the United States, is Heather Antos, one of the editors of many, many different comics. Basically, an editor of my childhood and my godchildren's childhood, although my childhood's still ongoing. But some of my favorite runs of comics ever, like Deadpool, all of Star Wars for a good few-year period. Partial creator of Gwenpool. I will ask her about that in a second to see how she prefers to be credited about that. Just a ridiculous amount of amazing work. As someone who has followed comics for way too long, and Marvel Comics in particular, I can say that she is my favorite editor since Jim Shooter, and possibly my favorite editor ever. Just everything she touches is absolute gold, and I am honored to be here with her. Thank you for coming on, Heather Antos.
What a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
Heather Antos, this is a question that I ask everyone, but it's strangely either appropriate or inappropriate with you, depending on.
Perfect.
But Heather Antos, what is your favorite comic book character?
Gwenpool.
Yeah. Okay. Of course. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I alternate right now. I'm on a big Silver Surfer kick.
Nice.
For no reason whatsoever. But yeah.
If I had to pick a character I'm not associated with, or not, I'll say Black Canary. Black Canary is one of my favorites.
Black Canary is cool. Yeah. No.
Thank you very much. Next we have
Olivia Robinson, who is the author of The Blue Moth Motel, a new book from Breakwater Books. Very serious question. Olivia Robinson, what is your favorite comic book character?
Oh, my favorite comic book character is a very good question. I must admit, I don't read many comic books.
This is why I love asking this to lit fiction people, because it's always
But yeah, a couple of my friends are big fans. Oh gosh, I guess we'll just go with Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman's cool.
Classic, yeah.
Yep. Diana is awesome. Yep.
Thank you very much. Next on the line, we have Amanda Labonte, author of the Call of the Sea and Supernatural Causes series. What is your favorite comic book or comic book character?
So, I haven't read a lot of comics.
That's why I want to do this. I want to get lit people on and be like, what do you like?
So I wasn't a big comic book reader, but I did read Archie, and
I started on Archie.
I read the Archie comics. And I was in the Archie comics. I was a big fan of Sabrina, the Teenage Witch.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like Sabrina. I like them all. Not Josie.
I mean, I didn't mind any of them. I read them, but I was an Archie reader.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next we have Jen Windsor, the Executive Director of the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador. Jen Windsor, what is your favorite comic book character or comic book story?
I mean, is it bad for me to say I don't know anything about comic books?
I imagine with some of the Writers Alliance audience that will come off as there'll be a huge relief.
A relief?
Yeah, from some of the the ones who are very serious writers, they'll go like, "Oh, phew, she doesn't know comics. That's great."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about it. I will say, I never even watched, before I met my partner, Luis, I never watched, I mean, okay, are you ready? This is probably going to be bad, and maybe I'll be struck by lightning, but I've never watched Star Wars, Star Trek. I've never watched any of the superhero movies, no Marvel, nothing.
Okay.
No Superman, no anything. No, I've never watched any of them.
I cannot wait for your child to be of an age that he can experience these things, because then you'll experience them for the first time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the way I grew up, it was very, I grew up in a super musical family. Everything was about music. We grew up, I had two sisters, and so it was all girls, and it was very on Saturdays, it was Jethro Tull playing very loudly, and there was never any it wasn't really something that was around, and but I'm starting to get into it. Well, and maybe I can keep you posted.
Okay, all right. Well, funnily enough, I got into Star Wars. Not that I'm huge into it. That's But I got into it because of music. Or rather, no, I got into musicals because of Star Wars.
Right.
Which sounds insane, but my mom gave me a box set of the first 3 on VHS when I was young, and that introduced me to Star Wars. And I was very susceptible to advertising as a 10-year-old, as all 10-year-olds are. And there were ads at the beginning for, great musicals you can get now. So then I asked for those for next year. So I was like, yay, these are related, and would just watch Sound of Music and Grease over and over again, which is weird because people usually would look at me now and when I know all the words to the songs, they're like, what? Why are you like this?
I think that's awesome. I mean, I am very much so into musicals, I must say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Next on the line, we have JRH Lawless, author of the novel Always Greener. Jay, if you have any, what is your favorite comic book character or graphic novel? If you don't have a favorite character, but you've got a favorite graphic novel, that way.
If we're going to carry on with fourth wall breaking, I'll have to say Deadpool.
That's fair.
Other than that, because, I mean, yeah, people know Deadpool more for the movies now anyway. Strictly comic book. I grew up reading Asterix and Obelix, and those have some really cool things in there. Some really great characters. I mean, Asterix is a bit flat. Obelix is probably a much more interesting character, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No, that's great. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Lauralana Dunne, the superstar short story author who recently put out her first full novel, Ashes, which came out in June 2020 from Engen Books. Lauralana Dunne, what is your favorite comic book character, or failing that, comic book in general?
When I was younger, okay, so first of all, I obviously have Gargoyles comics. Let's be real.
The Marvel ones were amazing back in the day.
Yes, the same guy, Greg Weiss, I want to say his last name is, who wrote the actual TV series, came on and wrote the comics as well. So
no, there was actually a 10-issue series that came out when the series was on the air that I own most of, or I used to, which was wonderful.
Really?
Yes, it is. It got canceled, but Marvel put it out. It was crazy.
I'll have to look again. I don't know if that might be the same one.
Maybe.
I'm not sure. Because did Disney own it off the hop? I can't remember. So I have those. But I think when I was younger, my favorite one was probably Turtles in Time.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember always looking for that when I went to places that sold comic books. Because I wanted to know how they were getting back.
Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't tell you a lot about the storyline at this point, and I don't think I have that comic anymore, but that was my favorite one when I was younger.
You like all the stuff I liked when I was a kid. Jeez.
It's almost like we were born in the same time or something.
I know, but like there's a ton of people that are born in the same time that I would share as many interests with.
Well, they're not nerd cool.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Next we have
Paul David Power. He's got a new book, Crippled, out through Breakwater Books, which is a story about love, death, life, and redemption. So just little themes, nothing too heavy, you know what I mean?
Big Jack Kirby fan. I think the first comic I ever bought was Machine Man #1.
Wow.
1977, maybe. You know, always read comics, like enjoyed them. Now, you want to know what the favorite one was?
Yes.
Commandy. Always a big Commandy fan. Maybe it's because I, watched Planet of the Apes and it reminded me of that, but always a super big Commandy fan.
Interesting.
Had the opportunity last year to buy the whole set from a guy locally, and I did. It was mostly Jack Kirby's work. Kirby wrote it, drew it, edited it. I don't think he lettered it, but he probably inked it. He did everything. Like, that's why he was the king, right? Him and Stan Lee, phenomenal pair. Him and Stanley Ditko, phenomenal pair of creators, But yeah, that would probably be my favorite. Not book-wise, always a Conan the Barbarian fan. Started reading Conan the Barbarian when I was in junior high, and read all the Robert E. Howard stuff, devoured it. Then Robert Jordan started doing pocket novels, and I would go to the Owl's nest in Woodstock, and I just patiently wait for the next Leonard Carpenter or John Maddox Roberts or Robert Jordan or one of them. They would pump out a Conan novel every month.
Nice.
And I loved it. The whole sword and sorcery thing, and it was great.
Awesome.
Conan could do everything and anything. He was the Wolverine of the Hyborian age. Hey.
Yep. Awesome. Perfect.
All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.